Oseo.
Oseo.
That's a Cherokee greeting. We say, wave the great feather. Aha, aha, aha. And we're starting out, we're still in Women's History Month. So I still want to, acknowledge that. If you can look down here to the little woman down here.
Wait.
So this is a Mexican piece, and the woman with her braid, and she's holding the sow, a very ancient symbol for woman here. And then we're going to go up here to my shield here with featuring Deb Holland. And so while you're looking at that, this is an article, current article about her as one of the outstanding women of this History Month, like that. That's titled Report on Indigenous Border Schools due in April. And of course most people are going to know by now, in recent months it has been exposed that thousands of Native American children in Canada and then the United States have been found in graves, some of them unmarked graves and so forth. So anyway, it had spawned an investigation by the Interior Department and Deb Holland. And I'm not going to read all of this, but we do know some of the things. We have been very cognizant of the fact that we need to create a safe space for people to share information and to seek resources. We recognize this is a very traumatic experience for many people. We see it as a critical first step for this country to acknowledge and address the horrors and cultural genocide our Native children, families, and tribal nations suffered through the Indian bordering schools run by federal government and churches. So you get the idea, like that. And finally, the last paragraph is also current. President Joe Biden on Wednesday also renewed the Violence Against Women Act, which includes provisions to protect Native American women that had been lacking before now. And that has a separate article titled Congress Votes to Renew Domestic Violence Law. And Biden had actually introduced this bill originally, I guess when he was a senator way back in 1990. So those are some important notes here in this Women's History Month. Now next thing we're going to go to, we can go over here. Last week I introduced this. This is a painting on a grass mat. It's been ingeniously sewed and painted on, and I introduced this before the spring equinox. That's what's going on here. And it is, we'll call it a pyramid. That's a very accurate picture because I was there in 1968. And it's called Chichen Itza. Actually, Chichen Itza is the name of the locale. There's a large well, cistern well called Coyote, and Chichen Itza actually means, the well of the Itza. That's who the people were at the time in the past, like that. But this building itself is known by a modern name, El Castillo, the castle. But the Mayans know it differently. So espiritual is the espiritual edificio de Hunamkapku'u, meaning this is the edifice, the spiritual edifice of Hunapku, which stands for one who is movement and measure. Or the other short name I would say would be called, this is about the modality of the building, the edifice. And what happens is in the equinox, the heavenly serpent descends from the sky into the temple, and then as the sun proceeds down the balustrade of the steps to culminate, in a large stone head of the serpent. And people attend that, thousands now, like that. And so this is something that is very actual. So I say it's a modality of the edifice. The edifice, the pyramid we'll call it, and the deity are one and the same. It's a deified edifice. In other words, and it's known by that name. Puna, ku'u, movement and measure, or modality of the building, the edifice. And so that's the way, I'm starting this. And you can come over here and look at this one. This is a miniature of that very building, and it is surmounted by a very large, this is a miniature, but the original, it's in the museum in Mexico City, simply referred to as the Aztec calendar or the Aztec sunstone. And so we kind of look at that while I bring this to light. It's called the Lament of the Mexica. Now the Aztec is the name, maybe the Spaniards applied it to these people, but they called themselves the Mexica. And Aztlan, or Aztec, seems to come from their mythical origins, a place either Aztlan or Aztlan, meaning the place of the white heron. And that had tremendous mythical value for these people. Anyway, let me start with this statement, the lament. We have pounded our hands in despair against the adobe walls, for our inheritance was only a net of holes. And then I'm saying, and yet we continue to view those concepts that have been well used, such as spiritual conquest or cultural assimilation, to the effect that they obscure the critique of the cultural influence between the Mediterranean and Mexico. And so we think of the importance of cultural identity not as a static construct, but flexible and dynamic when traditional ways of thinking and being are threatened. And so we too may wonder if we have inherited a net of holes. But take a dip into Coyote's myth of Aztlan to be reminded of the many threads that still link us to the elders and their not so distant cultures. So note at this point of the books that were authored by Carlos Castaneda, variously titled The Teachings of Don Juan Matus, which amounts to a study of the concerns for a procedure for reviving the spiritual link, connecting the creative cosmic force. Don Juan calls it intent, Goya called it iva'a, the Mayans call it hunapku'u. That link, the link is figured as a lizard or a serpent because they can curve and bend. So all of that gives us the introduction into my main theme here is Quetzacoatl. Quetzacoatl is very, very pervasive. It's, a simple name, it's a plumed or feathered serpent or a dragon. It is a mythical belief system that was ubiquitous throughout Mexico, certainly, and into at least the southwest here, north of the border now, like that. And it's also the name of a culture hero. And here we can look here. a shield depicting Quetzalcoatl. He's also connected with wind and water, and here he has a device that water is coming out. And Quetzal is also the name of a bird there in the tropics in Guatemala that has very, very long green tail feathers. And so he's wearing those tail feathers. And then we can come up here and look at this. This is a carved mask, rather old. It's very soulful, and it is the mask of Quetzalcoatl. And here, very wondrously, is a very good portrait of the little bird. See that little bird and his long, long, long green tail feathers, you know. And so that's where the name comes from in all of that. So we have other parts, you know, for that. Look over here. I have another painting that I have here of. You can see that it is a feathered serpent, rather fiery, and there's, you know, the sun. So it's not really simple to put everything together about Quetzalcoatl other than the way I'm saying it. As a qualification, I was in Mexico on a student visa, and my subject was to, I had a master's project of Mexican art history. So that's what got me there. One of my professors, you know, officially remarked of me, my interest, that is, sympathies Mexican. And so it was, you know, very in-depth. Diego Rivera was my principal person that I focused on. He was the first person, at least at large, to take seriously the art of the ancient people. And he had a huge collection. People, Mexicans, you know, brought him all kinds of artifacts. And he built a replica of a Toltec castle, maybe you could call it, south in Cuernavaca, south of Mexico City. I went there. He built it, and he had his studio in the center of it. But he had all these artifacts that he arranged, you know, throughout his building. As an artist, would arrange them very different than the anthropology museum. So I'm just saying that it was very important that I focused on him for my project as well. So it took me other places and into Yucatan and the Mayan world there. So that's what we're concerned with, you know, here. And over here, this thing doesn't always work. You see, this is a maca, effigy of a maca. And he's a kind of deity, and he's, you know, very much paired with Quetzalcoatl. And in the Popol Vuh, the Mayan book, he's quoted as saying, "I am great, I am the sun, I am their light. My light is great because my eyes are made of metal, and my teeth glitter as jewels. Jewels of turquoise, they stand out blue with stones like the face of the sky." So he's called, you know, seven flower, Popili, or the Aztecs call him seven maca. So this is very, very, very important in this ancient history. And it's spread throughout Mexico and the Southwest and so forth. So he's, you know, kind of deity. I suspect that he really represents a much earlier modality in Mexico before Quetzalcoatl. And so down here, here's a pot from Casa Grande. Casa Grande was a very large, important pueblo in Chihuahua, south of the United States border. And this is in the effigy of the Maka. The Maka is so very, very important mythically in this. So that's it. Evidence. Now the bird itself, lives way in the south, so these birds, had to be imported into the southwestern region here where the pueblos are, and where people perhaps even today continue to feed the bird or the effigies like this one here, still very regarded as very, very important. He kind of commands craftspeople, he commands reciprocity, gift giving. I mean, he's a very, very important person here. And up here is my oil painting. Here's my oil painting, carrying that theme across. And then over here is another of my oil paintings for the serpent. Even a jade serpent here. And I should say here, I have this figure here. This is a Mexican figure. Very good. This is Bulacan. We call it priest of the heavenly serpent, and he's holding an effigy of the Quetzal serpent here. So that's really, really, really precious. And that's the way it translated. Bulacan, priest of the heavenly serpent. Heavenly serpent is at the same time Quetzacoatl. And also, I should say here, next to him, he has a twin, and that's, Xolotl. Xolotl means, the twin, the one who doubles everything. He is Coyote, and he's also the imperial warrior who still is at large today in modern times. He doubles with Quetzalcoatl, the man who, you will hear in a minute, ascended into the heavens to become Venus, the planet Venus. Well, Quetzalcoatl is the morning star, Xolotl, Coyote, is the evening star. And that's what's symbolized here, like that. So if we can go up here and we can look at this picture to go along with this, and it'll follow up to there. This is actually from the Anales de Coatitlan, the Codas Chimalpopoca, translated into Spanish by Primo Velázquez in Mexico in 1945. I have the English translation. Now Quetzalcoatl departs. When he reached the holy sea and the shores of the luminous ocean, he stayed his steps and wept. He gathered his garments together and dressed himself again in his robes of quetzal feathers and his turquoise mask. And when he had dressed, he set his own body on fire and was consumed in flames. For this reason, the place where Quetzalcoatl burned is called the place of the stake. And it is well known that when he was aflame and his ashes rose in the sky, all the fine feathered birds appeared to watch how they went up aloft. The red feathered guacamaya, the blue jay, the lovely thrush, the shining white bird, the parrots and parakeets with their yellow feathers, and all other richly plumed birds. When the ashes had ceased to burn, Quetzalcoatl's heart rose up. They say it was raised to heaven, and it entered there. The elders say that it became the morning star, which lights the dawn. And they say further that it wasn't seen for 4 days after his death, when he had gone to sojourn in the kingdom of the afterlife. And in those 4 days he gathered arrows, and 8 days later he appeared again as the great star, And it is well known that since that time he has been always upon his throne. So you can see there's up here, this is the symbol for that star of Venus, and here is his heart. I mean, come over here and you can see this picture here. This is my drawing, and my drawing I did some time ago. The best of referring to it is inspired by my spiritual experience in Mexico, even exactly Temple of Miahuatlan in Oaxaca. And I'm having it here to say we need it's about a new Quetzacoatl, who is of the modality of our time. So that's what I'm figuring it with here. And here below it, this is to figure as Aztlan, the place of the white heron. And Aztlan, began as the mythical or legendary origin for the people we're calling the Aztec, the Mexica. And this became extremely important in their governance over the other nations that they presided over as their authority. And I think that the Spanish, when they came, that they learned this, and that's why they gave the people of the Mexica the name the Aztecs, for all of that. And so that was, 400 or 500 years ago. But in recent times, it actually happened in 1968 or 1969 in San Diego, at San Diego State. A professor, I can't remember his name, brought Aztlan again alive. And San Diego has been a nucleus for Chicano, for the Chicano world. And now for people in Mexico, Aztlan is now the place to return to home. So people coming to the border or crossing the border see that they have a mythical impetus, to come here to Aztlan as their home. So it's like that coming home is what we're talking about here. So all of that is implied here with my display and so forth. In this time of spring, as I should go over here because I have here a floral, Xochipilli meaning the deity of the flowers here. It's also a name of Seven Maca here, so you can see all of that. And we're in need of this new myth body and this kind of transformation that Quetzalcoatl and Aztlan signify for our time. And I'm just going to have one PS again. That this is the book that we put together. If you're tuning in for the first time, Coyote's Talk, A Journey Through the Seasons is featuring, these displays starting a year ago in March, accompanied by the poems, usually Mary Oliver poems that I read on that occasion. And these are available at Amazon for $10. You go by the title, the book title, found under Amazon Books is A Journey Through the Seasons with Coyote Talks. It's edited by Claudia Pocock. And if you want to see any of these talks, Tim Britton, Brittain, YouTube, look for the most recent talk, and you can scroll back to any of these. So that's the way that we are celebrating women's history, and how we are also celebrating the spring and Quetzacoatl and Mexico. Good.